Okay, so we're back out in the workshop, which means we're doing a little bit of woodworking. After 2 dice videos in a row, it's time to talk about something, as I'm covered in sawdust, that's not exactly dice related, but is somewhat similar. We are making another one of these pressure pot inserts. This is the way where I keep more than one set of dice inside the pressure pots. And if I pack this right, I can fit 3 sets of dice in a single casting. So let's talk about how to make this from some basic raw materials you might have at your house or be able to get off of Amazon, and do a little quarantine DIY to make another one and replace this one, which has really given its all. So the basic gist of this insert is that it has multiple layers that are all about 3 inches separated. You can see that just about 3 inches, and knowing that I have a 3-inch mold, that's all I need. Now to make one of these, we're gonna be using these wooden Baltic rounds, which you can buy easily online. Some wooden dowel rods, ditto, easy enough. A simple marker for measuring, some 1-inch wood screws, which I have left over from the DIY project on my first video, a screw gun, and a tape measure. This all starts relatively easily. Measure a 3-inch mark on your dowel rods or whatever the height of your personal mold system is, and then head over to a circular saw, or you could do this with a manual saw. It's just, I have power tools, so why not use power tools? If you're using a circular saw, I recommend setting up a stop block so you don't need to worry about maintaining measurements, and also the fact that all of your dowel rod sections will be the exact same height, so each individual segment of the pressure pot insert will be level. Quickly cut all of those off, and then you're off to the table to start on your assembly. Now I'm using these 1-inch exterior galvanized screws because that's what I have around the house, hashtag quarantine life, but you can use pretty much anything to secure this. The reason I use screws is something I'll talk about a little bit later in the video. And this is really simple. Just drill through the balsa wood disc and then hold the dowel rod and then very lightly have the screw torque its way into the wood. I say lightly because you're basically holding something in the path of the screw, but it's kind of hard to not hold onto part of this or else you're just gonna end up spinning wildly. There's a couple different ways, just be careful and use your best judgment. After you've added 3 segments to each individual layer, it's time to make another layer and to get them all connected. And there's a small catch that you might wanna think about. Now you might be asking yourself why I don't just drill into here to secure this whole bottom layer, and that's because we need to put another layer on top. And it would be kind of hard to drill inside this small gap right here. The drill doesn't really fit in that small of a space. So the easier way to do this is to flip this over and drill into this. Make basically 2 blanks that we will then vertically sandwich together. So let's quickly do that. That was strange. I have no idea what came over me. And now you might be wondering why we saved these little nubbins, and that's because we want to make a lid. And if we went for an entire full height 3 inches, it would be just too tall for our pressure pot. That fits just fine. Now let's briefly talk about why I use screws instead of glue or adhesives, which you've seen probably on other channels. I do that because I want these to be replaceable and sustainable, and I don't want to have to buy dowel rods at multiple times. If I'm using an adhesive, as soon as I get resin onto each of the individual discs, the entire assembly is ruined and it gets to the point where it's unusable. Just take a look at the insert on the first pressure pot I had that I'm rebuilding in the background while talking about this. With the ability to disassemble the assembly, remove the only part that's affected by resin seepage, and then reassemble the assembly, I'm able to save a little bit of money and also make sure that this is causing as little of an impact as possible. So while you could totally do this with adhesives, and I've seen other tutorials that point that way, that's the reason I go with screws, because it's easily reversible, and then you can easily reuse everything except the one affected piece of wood and have the smallest little bit of downtime while you're making a new assembly. So there you have it, a relatively inexpensive. You're able to make all of this for under, I think, $12, and that's because you have to buy the wood for 2, and that's the most expensive thing you need to buy. I did this with some spare screws laying around the house, a couple wooden dowel rods, and 1 pack of the wooden rounds. And now both of my pressure pots have inserts, and I can make up to 6 sets of dice in both of them thanks to these, allowing me to vertically stack in that pot. If you appreciated this video, if you found it useful, a positive rating would be super appreciated. I would love it if you could leave a like or a comment. Let me know what other DIY projects you want me to take on, maybe something with this little nubbin of wood that's left, or other woodworking or dice making projects here on the channel. I'm always looking for new ideas. Until next time, thank you all for watching. I appreciate your time. Be good to each other, and I'll see you around.